Well, welcome on a beautiful day. It's just a nice day to be in Albuquerque. I've been around the community this morning, and everybody's out enjoying the fall weather, and still nice and warm today, and the chili's roasting, and people are in a good mood. It's just a beautiful place to live, and we're thankful for Albuquerque. And we're also thankful just to be here today to break ground on another great community project, a project that's in a neighborhood that's worth investing in because the folks that live here are worth investing in. And we have a very robust and wonderful system of community centers in the city of Albuquerque, and it's what we use to bring ourselves together and talk about ideas, talk about challenges, raise our kids, and make sure that we have these opportunities that we all want. And today's another opportunity to also honor a great community member. In July of this year, the City Council passed and I signed legislation to have the Pat Hurley Community Center at Pat Hurley Park renamed the Jones Community Center in honor of Joan, and we're going to hear a lot more about that in just a minute. But Joan passed away on November 18th of 2015 at the age of 69 after a valiant battle with cancer. Joan was a dedicated advocate for the West Side, specifically the Pat Hurley Neighborhood Association. She volunteered her services at the Albuquerque Police Department. We've got a number of APD folks here today representing them. Also, she volunteered at the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. She had a deep love and a passion for her community. And so I think it's just a really awesome opportunity to honor her and her legacy. So this is going to be a phased project. The first phase, it's a large project. The first phase of this is $1.9 million between the two phases. Money for phase 1 and 2, like most times, comes from the taxpayer, comes from the citizens in the community that decided that this was worth the investment as well. There's a $2.24 million total bond package there. The state of New Mexico brought $100,000 to the table for this project. And then the city of Albuquerque, Councilor Sanchez will talk about this, has $165,000 in there as well. Another great local contractor. Anybody here from T.A. Cole? Yay, I've known you guys for 25, 30 years. Great family business here in Albuquerque. Our architect is Greer Stanford, SJCF Architecture. Got some of the architecture folks. Good to see you again. And Christopher Rasmussen is the architect of record. And like I say, the first phase will have a computer lab, activity room, game room. Phase 2 will include the fitness center, the multi-purpose room, the warming kitchen. And I just can't wait to get over here. I've got, I think I've got one or two left. One national night out left, I think, as mayor. And I look forward to being out here next year and really celebrating with the community. I do want to thank a couple of people, and then I want to turn this over to Councilor Sanchez, because this has really been a passion of his, and we wouldn't be here today without him, and I'll mention that in just a minute. But Jim Jones, thank you so much for sharing Joan with the community, man. She was an awesome lady. Councilor Sanchez, certainly. Doug Chaplin here. Doug's our Director of Family and Community, so this will be your center. This will be a Family and Community Center run facility. Melissa Lozoya. I didn't see Melissa when I walked in. She's our acting director for Department of Municipal Development, but I know we got some DMD folks here that'll actually get this thing built. Barbara Taylor, our director of parks right here, passionate about parks in the city of Albuquerque. And of course, I know Councilor Sanchez will introduce Representative Mo Maestas. We were freshmen together in the legislature, and it's just a thrill for me to get a chance to do anything that has involvement from the legislature. And Mo brought the dollars to the table. Senator Candelaria could not be here today, but also want to thank George Hawley and everybody from the Pat Hurley Neighborhood Association. It's a good day, and our friends from APD, Jim Hamill, as I said, from DMD, Steve James from DMD as well. So let's celebrate. Let's get the ground broken, and let's get some hammers swinging, and we'll have another great community center open here pretty soon. With that, I'm just going to turn the whole show over to the guy that made this happen, and that's Ken Sanchez, city councilor, passionate about the West Side, passionate about the place where he grew up as well, and appreciate working with you every day, Councilor.
Mayor, thank you. Today is not just an ordinary day here in Albuquerque's West Side. Today is an extraordinary day. And as I look back 42 years ago, one of my first jobs growing up was here at Pat Hurley Community Center. It was a small house that was put up, and I've got the individual here who was my boss, Richard Elwell, that hired me back in 1974 when we opened up the first Pat Hurley Community Center. And it's been a long fight. I know that Councilor Armijo has worked very closely. We got the barracks put up a few years later and the house was knocked down. But this community has waited for a long, long time to build a full-service community center for this area. The Pat Hurley Neighborhood Association, along with Joan Jones, did a remarkable job in keeping us on our toes each and every day to assure that we got this community center built. And Pat Hurley was the first community center on Albuquerque's west side. After that came the West Mesa Community Center, the Don Newton Community Center, Paradise Hills Community Center, Alamosa. But I felt that this center should have been built before the other centers, but good things take time. And this will be a great facility. With all the individuals involved and the people that have helped, I want to thank the administration for all of their work, because we get a lot of the credit for the work that gets done here, but it's those individuals that are behind the scenes each and every day that do the hard work to make these dreams come true. And for myself, this is a dream come true. And I'm going to bring up in just a few minutes Richard Elwell, who was my boss, who basically was the founder of Pat Hurley Community Center back in 1974. And also I want to thank Kiki Saavedra, who worked for the city of Albuquerque at the time to help get this first community center built. But we're making progress. It's taken some time. But again, this will be a magnificent facility. And it seems like the only time that we hear Pat Hurley is when it's in the news for shootings that have taken place. But this community never gave up. I mean, we are bigger than the evil that lives in our community, because there are some great people that live here that really believe in this community and want to see it develop and grow, where our young kids can come and get mentored and have an opportunity to be in a safe environment. But again, this will be great for this community, and we feel hopefully we can stop some of the crime that has occurred here at Pat Hurley, because there has been shootings. There has even been individual young teenagers that have died here at Pat Hurley Community Center. But that will not be the case in the future as we move forward. And I want to thank everyone involved, because one person cannot do this alone. United as a community, there is very little that we cannot do, and it's been proven over and over again that we can do remarkable things with the support of the community. At this time, I would like to welcome up Representative Mo Maestas. They say that Bo knows diddly, but Mo knows best. He's done a great job for us in Santa Fe, and he's worked side by side with me. And they talk about all of the money that's now sitting in the capital fund in Santa Fe. They say there's close to $1 billion. I think the key in making these dollars work is leveraging the resources. And I've had that working relationship with Senator Candelaria and also Representative Maestas, that we look at the projects that can be done as quickly as possible, shovel-ready projects. And if it was not for our representative, we would not be standing here today. Representative Maestas, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to be with all of you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Sanchez, Mr. Alwell, and of course the Jones family. It was a joy to play here as a kid, playing basketball, and then there was a softball field with a very short left field. I don't know if you remember that. So it was my only chance to get one out, and still couldn't pull it off. But it was, but since I've been in the legislature for 10 years, one of the first persons I met in this neighborhood activist was Joan Jones, and she had such wonderful moral authority and such a powerful disposition that she didn't ask you or suggest something. She says, "No, Mo, we need this to happen. Mo, we need you to do this. We need you to do that." And I was like, absolutely. And so, it's a joy to be a part of the development of the park and the jogging path. And now you can connect the lower park to the upper park, because Pat Hurley neighborhood below the Mesa is such a beautiful place, because you're connected to the West Mesa and the west side, but also Atrisco in the South Valley, as well as Old Town and the North Valley. So it's a center of culture and activity. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and we can thank Joan Jones for building that sense of community. And it's just really appropriate to commemorate this building with her name. She was tremendous. We love her very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't mention, when I'd come down to work here, my mom, and we grew up right here on top of the hill, I'd run down to work. But with the slave driver Richard as my boss, I'd have to crawl back up to the house. At this time, I would like to invite Richard Elwell, who basically was the founder of the Pat Hurley Community Center and was my boss back in 1974. And his commitment was to education. He was an educator here in Albuquerque. He retired from the Albuquerque Public Schools and was also a great basketball coach. I think you were the head coach for Rio Grande High School, Richard? Yes. and has just really mentored young kids throughout his career, and it's an honor to introduce to you Richard Elwell.
I just want to give you a little history of this place. We moved here from the Great Manzano Mountains, the northern part, Edgewood, when I was 9 years old. That was 1950. And this place right here, there was two families that lived here, the Salas and the Pereas. And when it rained, there was a big arroyo back here, and this thing will be flooded. Mr. Ross lived up on the side over there, had a nice, beautiful place with a nice window. He could see the whole city. Sometime in the 60s, Parks and Recreation decided that this community needed some tennis courts because we were such great tennis players from this area. We had no idea what a tennis ball was. But they decided they would give us 4 courts, 20,000 square feet over there. Then after that came the baseball field, not for our use, but for the rest of the community. Mr. Ross had to deal with it for, I don't know how many years, 3, 4 years, with lights and drunks, who else, and what else, noise. So he decided to sell it. He sold it to the city. So I've been harping with Kiki about, hey, we need some recreation on that side. We have nothing. So he said, you know what, Rich? We just closed Manny Mora Community Center, which is South San Jose Community Center, and we have a small amount of money that we could open Mr. Ross's place. You got to go in there and break down some walls so you can use it. And we did. We started. We had all the kids coming down. There was nothing up on the hill. So we started that. So the baseball field came. And Mr. Ross moved, and we had the recreation center, and that's how we had the softball field. No grass, nothing. And pretty soon they decided to take the baseball field out and give us some grass. Then we asked for some portable buildings, and that took us forever to get some portable buildings, and they finally brought them. I'm still pissed. Since 1974. West Mesa was built. They tore it down. They built a new one. We get nothing down here. They built Taylor Ranch. They built everywhere. Everywhere else on the west side, they built. Nothing for Pat Hurley. I don't know if do we belong to downtown or do we belong to the West Mesa? I don't know. Downtown, I think. So now we're getting the first phase. I see other places when they're built, they get the full phase. We're getting one phase. I hope before I die, I'm 75 years old. I hope before I die I can see the gymnasium. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the west side. When I moved here, it was from Central to Ilef, 60th Street. I went to Lavalin as a 4th grader. And then they opened up John Adams. But we had a lot of kids coming down here. But that was West Mesa then. Central to Ilef and to 60th. I went to the College of St. Joseph, which was strictly desert too. Great place. Wish we still had it. It'd be a great little place to go to school. So finally, we get this. But I hope, Mayor, that we can get some more money before maybe in a couple of years so we can get the gymnasium. And we don't have to wait another, 40 years to get the gymnasium? What do you think? Can we do it?
Get her on the GO bond. That's the way to do it.
Okay. But I'm glad it's happening. We have a great park. They did a wonderful job with the park. Now we're going to get some buildings. And I hope I see the gymnasium before I pass away. Thank you very much.
Richard, you look like you're in pretty good health, but hopefully it will not take that long.
Shoot. Weight moves.
I would also like to invite up Jim Jones. Jim was involved and is still involved with the Neighborhood Association, and his wife kept him on his toes for many, many years as a volunteer for this community. Jim, I'd like you to come up and say a few words on behalf of Joan and yourself and your organization.
I'll do better this time. I cannot help but tell you, and it's already been said, Joan loved this community. Hardly a day went by when she didn't try to think up something. And she thought up a lot of stuff. But anyway, to make things better. And she knew that these barracks buildings had to go. And she went downtown, banged her fist on desks, and I think finally the powers that be realized she wasn't going to go away. So here we are. And I'm very proud of her. I know she's very pleased. She's watching. She is very, very pleased at what is going on. I wish you were here to see it in person, but there's some things we cannot control. So I look around here and history's being made. I understand the construction crew here is the best in the business for this kind of thing. So we'll see. So I want to thank you all for being here. Great support for my great wife. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up George Hurley. He has filled the shoes of Joan. It's been some big shoes to fill, George, but he's been involved with the Neighborhood Association for many years. And I'd like him to say a few words also.
Thank you. Many of the things I wrote down would be redundant to repeat. I was the vice president of Pat Hurley for quite a few years, following Joan's leadership. And it was great leadership because she was a woman that was committed to her community and her neighborhood and all the people around her. Always trying to figure out ways to make it better. Make it better for the children. Because if you're bringing the children up right, your community is going to be better. We talked about earlier about the structures that were here. She did have many hats she wore while working toward the betterment of the Pat Hurley Neighborhood Association and the neighborhood. She spent many years involved with and leading the neighborhood towards working with and honoring both the Albuquerque Police Department and the Albuquerque Fire Department. Every Thanksgiving, Joan and her husband Jim would make Thanksgiving dinner and deliver it to the fire department over here, which is no longer here, it's been moved. And she also made sure that every year there would be a barbecue type affair for the police so that they would find out that the community cared about them rather than what many people do towards the police now. And then, oh yeah, Easter egg hunts. We used to do them too. And they only happen once a year. And I'm trying to cut out some things that have already been covered. She would always find a way to reach her goal. As many people have said, she didn't ask. She didn't demand. She just made you feel that it was so important that you had to do it. That's how I got involved with the Neighborhood Association. And that belief is still there. So in closing, I truly believe that this new facility is a fitting tribute to a woman that dedicated a good portion of her life for the betterment of her community and especially the children. Rest easy, Joan. Your mortar and brick structure will soon be here. Thank you.
Thank you, George. We also have the president of the West Side Coalition, Jerry Worrell.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Mayor, I'm so happy that so many of you are here today. I'm president of the West Side Coalition, but to get to be president of the coalition, I needed some people, and that was a very hard time. So I came down to this neighborhood and I met this woman, Joan Jones, and I said, look, you've been the treasurer for a number of years. Would you stay on? Well, I only met Joan in 2006. I don't think she ever had a well day past 2006 that I remember. That woman could do more sick than most of us can do healthy. And she pushed you to your absolute best because she believed in the West Side. And she believed in all of the West Side, not just Pat Hurley neighborhood. So I thank her for her service. I thank her for her memory, We've had too many of our great community leaders that we've lost in the last few months. And I have this fear, don't be in a hurry to get past this earth, because if Joan Jones and Louis Tafoya and Bob McCannon are up there waiting for us for a meeting, I'm going to stay here for a while. Thank you very much.
We hope that's the case, Jerry. I'd also like to call up a very good friend of mine and a true leader in our community. He is now working for the administration. Alan Armillo, he was the city councilor for many years and worked with myself, worked with Joan, but he has served 20 years in our community, and I'd like to recognize and let Alan say a few words.
Jim, come over here. So this is for Joan, and I know you'll give her this message. That's what I did to Joan every time I saw her, and I'm not going to say much. It's kind of warm, but Joan was just a wonderful person. I got elected city councilor in this area in 1989. We started immediately working together. I put money in the GO bond for different things for this park, as well as others that she would come and advise me about. But I enjoyed going to visit Jim and Joan at their house right down the street and have coffee, and she would just talk to me and talk to me. She always accused me of trying to throw her out of her wheelchair. Did I try to do that, Jim?
I don't think.
But I'm glad that this is being named after her, and a wonderful person, Jim, both of you. We talk a lot about Joan, but you know, behind every strong woman is a meek guy who just said yes ma'am and helped her out, and that was Jim. So thank you very much.
Again, real quickly, thank you to the taxpayers of this community for supporting your GO bonds. We also have a zip line here now at the park. I had asked Parks and Rec if we could start the zip line at the top of the hill down to the bottom, but risk management said absolutely not. Again, thank you for being here. This is going to be a great community center, and we want to welcome our children once the center is open. Thank you.